Hey everyone, CW Music Reviews here. I am CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new DJ Shadow album, The Mountain Will Fall. DJ Shadow is an electronic producer, obviously a DJ, and this is his latest full-length album. This guy is best known for dropping what is probably one of the most important albums in electronic music and hip-hop music, as well as sample-based music, Introducing. Pretty much the entire album consisted of samples that DJ Shadow was able to lift entirely from like records he found at the record store. The sheerly vast and eclectic types of samples that ended up on that record was so phenomenal that it still surprises me that this was something that was made back in the 90s. Since then though, he's kind of had some hard time trying to like give us an effective follow-up. Can't say that I've listened to like a good chunk of these projects from front to back, but there wasn't really a whole lot to keep going with for me anyway. Now we have this new album from DJ Shadow, The Mountain Will Fall. His first in about 5 years or so. So, what did I think of this project? I do like this thing, but I can't help but feel like while I do think he has tricks up his sleeve, he still has a few ideas going for him. I can't say that every single idea keeps me engaged from beginning to end. Pretty much this is a sort of a hit or miss type album with maybe a little more hits. This album's about 13 tracks in length, about maybe 50 minutes, 40 something minutes. While there is quite a few tracks on here, it still feels pretty brief in a way. It's kind of feels like an appetizer of sorts, not the hour-long monolith that was Introducing. The ideas here seem to be pretty eclectic, like DJ Shadow is known for doing. You have moments that have like swing-ish music here. There's definitely house music, IDM music, some EDM music certainly. Ambient and trip house make their appearance here, although that's not necessarily a genre that DJ Shadow is new to. So it's quite a bit of an eclectic stylistic soup you got here, but there are tracks that I don't think DJ Shadow just ends up fully fleshing out in a way. The biggest disappointment here being Three Ralphs. It had me intrigued to start with. Some really jarring cymbals going on, as well as like some hard-hitting bass in a way, and it's like moving in kind of a really steady and slow-paced motion. But unfortunately, this track ends up just dissipating somewhere in the middle for no reason. In a way, I feel like that DJ Shadow felt like he was going to accidentally rip off Tonight, and he just stopped, like, out of nowhere and just let it guide out into ambient. Along with the track Death Charge, which has like this really menacing guitar lick that pops up over and over, and I thought it was pretty cool at first, but just over time it felt more like a thing than it did like a pretty cool sample. There's build on this track, but it doesn't really go much of anywhere. Then you got tracks like Mambo, which have like a really menacing and really dark bass going for it, as well as like some like interesting sampled mambo vocal snippets going on. But unfortunately, the track just feels like way too brief for its own good. While alternatively, you have the track Ashes to Oceans, which is too long for its own good. There's definitely a sense of like versatility to this track, with the way it like builds over time and has like some pretty interesting jazzy instrumentation. But why did it need to be 6 minutes long? The track California had like a really interesting idea with these like synth patterns and beats, but the California vocal sample is like kind of annoying and it doesn't really add much to anything to the track. It just feels like that DJ Shadow is once again trying to churn up a lot of different ideas that are in a way kind of different for him, but unfortunately these are tracks that don't particularly go that well in terms of being fleshed out and really engaging the listener. But there are certainly tracks here that do so, since DJ Shadow is not incapable of delivering a solid EP's worth of tracks. Like the opening track, as well as the title track, The Mountain Will Fall. It's got like a really ambient landscape type thing that really keeps me engaged from front to back and really has me on my edge on what it is DJ Shadow's gonna do next. And all of a sudden you get the sample, yeah! ah type shout, and it just goes from there. Like there's like this revving in a way, like he's like messing with like the turntables to make it sound like the synth wall is like de-escalating then re-escalating in a way. Then that track goes directly into my favorite track on the album, Nobody Speak, which has Run the Jewels on it. LP and Killer Mike are both doing their thing, they're both spitting a lot of game. That makes me really interested in what Run the Jewels 3 is going to sound like, especially given LP's line on this track where he says, "Gonna flame the opposite crew faster than Trump fucks his youngest." But it's not just that, the production on this track is pretty fantastic. It opens up with like this downward arpeggiating guitar, and the beat is like pretty bombastic in a way. It's definitely something needed for in a group, a duo that is as aggressive and tough as nails as Run the Jewels. Plus there's like these really fantastic horn samples that really adds a lot of texture to this track. You also have the track Bergschrund, which features Nils Fromm, but one thing about this album that I really don't like is the fact that a majority of the features, you would have had to have told me that they were on this track and not just samples that DJ Shadow was just able to pull out. But regardless, this is definitely a cool track. It's kind of a Eurodance vibe in a way. There's like all these crazy synth leads and arpeggios that like are all over this track that I think maybe Nils contributed to, so that's pretty cool. Then you get the track The Sideshow, which features a rapper named Ernie Fresh, and he does his thing particularly well. But again, the one thing that really compels me about this track is the instrumentation. It's like really turntable heavy, like there's all these scratches that like overtake the track, and it sounds like the most fun block party in the world. Like it takes me all the way back to like that urban era of like the early 2000s or so. And you have the closing track Suicide Pact, which has these like really dark and kind of depressive type guitar leads going on. It's got kind of a bluesy vibe to it that I think DJ Shadow was able to implement pretty well. There's all these twittering hi-hats on this track that really adds to the build, and it just glides out particularly well and is a particularly good closing track. So to get this out of the way, I never really expected DJ Shadow to outdo introducing. Like that's not the standard that I was listening to this album for. And I think people that are looking at it that way are going to be disappointed, certainly. There's like no reason they wouldn't be disappointed if all they're looking for is DJ Shadow to finally put out his next classic album. I'm sorry, but this isn't it, and if you're going to be judging an album by that standard, you probably need to reevaluate how it is you judge albums in particular. As like a DJ Shadow album in itself, as a electronic album in itself, as like an instrumental hip-hop type album in itself, it's not fantastic, but it's not anywhere near bad either. Well, I think DJ Shadow is able to pull off putting out some pretty great songs. There's a good chunk of tracks here that doesn't really have a lot of memorability, or the idea just isn't fleshed out so well that it makes me want to return to it over and over. I'm definitely still going to be looking forward to what DJ Shadow has in store next, because there are tracks here that suggest to me that he could potentially make another great album, but as it stands now, this definitely isn't it. This album is a plus 1.3 out of plus 3. This is good. It's definitely a worthwhile listen, but don't be surprised if you go into this and only come out with like a handful of songs that you're going to want to like return to over and over. Nobody Speak will definitely be one of my favorite singles of the year, but I can't say the same for the rest of the 11 or 12 tracks that are on this album. If you're a DJ Shadow fan, you're definitely going to want to check this out. If you're a fan of electronic music, this is definitely worth a try. But if you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that? And what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? CW Music Reviews here, signing off.